There's a killer that brutally beat her little body walking free.
There's a killer that brutally beat her little body walking free.
At least nothing that was being released publicly at the time.
6 months. That's how long it's been since 16-year-old Mariah Cle was beaten to death in a trailer in Bloomington, Illinois. And for 6 months, the Bloomington Police Department has told her family one thing behind closed doors while telling the public nothing at all.
Coroner's office has released additional preliminary findings. The immediate cause of death has been determined to be subdural hematoma.
Then, on August 6th, the McLean County Coroner finally released the preliminary autopsy findings. The immediate cause of death, subdural hematoma, and multiple blunt injuries of the head and neck due to an altercation. Translation: she was beaten severely, and she died within minutes.
Clothing, items capable of inflicting blunt force trauma, any devices capable of recording audio and/or video.
But the coroner's report only confirmed what the family already knew. What they had already deduced from a single piece of paper left behind on a refrigerator door. Think of that document, a search warrant, stuck to the fridge with a magnet, listing items for seizure, any items containing red blood-like substances, items capable of inflicting blunt force trauma. The violence of the crime was spelled out in bureaucratic language before the cause of death was ever officially public.
Saying that's, when you look at the copy of the search warrant that was left at the home that you showed me, you shared with me, it says everything you expect to see in a search.
A retired homicide detective who reviewed the warrant stated the obvious. An interesting thing that's in it is it says any device or implement that could inflict blunt force trauma. That kind of tells you what they're looking for, and it also tells you the cause of death. The paperwork already knew.
Suspects or individuals involved may be alerted, potentially destroying evidence or fleeing from law enforcement, making them more difficult to identify.
And yet, for 6 months, the public narrative from law enforcement was silence. A Freedom of Information Act request for the autopsy and the 9/11 call was denied in full. The stated reason: releasing details can compromise the integrity of the process and allow suspects to flee from law enforcement.
None whatsoever. I mean, I can tell you that sometimes in police investigations, because I dealt with FOIA requests all the time.
But this rationale collides with another fact. The detective we consulted, a veteran of Chicago's Homicide Division, noted that after a certain point, the Freedom of Information Act requires information to be released, even if heavily redacted. He saw no explanation for the total blackout. None whatsoever.
Well, it's been my experience that two things are going on. One of two things. One, they're trying to build a case, and they don't want to release any information that would tip off.
Which forces a question: are investigators building an airtight case, or are they simply building a wall around nothing? The detective framed it as a binary. One of two things. One, they're trying to build a case, and they don't want to release any information that would tip off the person they're building a case against. Or they have nothing.
Mariah Kletz, a 16-year-old girl out of Bloomington, Illinois, was dead. At the time, we couldn't even label it as a homicide.
And here, the parallel narrative emerges from the family. Mariah had moved from Florida to Illinois to reconnect with her father, Michael Cle. He described her as my little princess, a daddy's girl. But Mariah's aunt and grandmother paint a different picture of the weeks before her death. She was unhappy. Her father broke promises. She wanted to go back to Florida. She was, in the words of her aunt, in a very down and depressed time.
He was given.
We had heard so many stories because her dad had told us, there's no marks on her, he just woke up, went to the bathroom, and he went to check on.
Then, the explosion of hard evidence. After Maria's death, her family says Michael told them there were no marks on her. He claimed he just woke up, went to check on her, and found her dead. But when the family viewed her body at the funeral home, what they saw did not match that story. Her nana describes it in clinical devastating detail. She was black and blue. Her skull was disfigured. Her forehead was sticking out of her head.
Eyes to gashes to scratches to, her forehead being forward, and we did go up.
She had over 22 marks on her face. 22, from black eyes to gashes to scratches. The funeral home staff reportedly assured the family that these injuries were not the result of the autopsy. The paperwork already knew.
Caitlin came down there with us, and they actually stood in a corner. In
the funeral home basement, as the family screamed, "What did you do to her?" Michael Cle and his girlfriend stood in a corner. They watched. They said nothing.
I believe my daughter went to a party, and
When we interviewed Michael, he offered an alternative theory. He believes Mariah went to a party and was attacked by a girl who was obsessed with her. He says he conducted his own investigation, recording kids who allegedly named someone else. But he conceded the central problem himself. It's all hearsay.
Well, you listen to what they have to say, you follow up with information they may give you, but you follow the evidence. All you can do is follow the evidence.
And that is where the forensic reality of this case tightens like a vise. As the detective explained in a blunt force trauma homicide, the most damning evidence is not on a phone or in a rumor, it is on the remains of the victim. DNA transfer, fingernail scrapings, trace evidence from the offender left on the body during a beating. That evidence is collected within days. It does not take 6 months to process.
Yeah, we agree with you. We think it was this person.
They're the ones that told me, yes. They said this. We know who.
This is the gap between procedure and result that most disturbs Mariah's grandmother. Off the record, she says detectives have told her, "We know who did it. You know who did it. Don't let nobody lead you a different way." But on the record, no arrest. No name.
Police every day, and then it went to a few times, and I still call Detective Brian twice a week because I get the same.
I still call Detective Brian twice a week, because I get the same thing. You know who did it, we know who did it. In nice items, then why isn't anybody arrested? It is a question that transforms this case from a tragedy into a ticking clock. If the suspect is known, if the evidence was collected at the scene, if the autopsy is complete, what exactly is the state's attorney waiting for?
And if this is an isolated instance like the police say that it was, why has it took 6 months for an arrest to be?
The grandmother narrows the aperture further. If this is an isolated instance like the police say that it was, why has it took 6 months for an arrest to be made when there was only 4 people in that home? One being Maria dead, one a child, and 2 grown adults? The math is brutal. The suspect pool is not a mystery. The paperwork already knew.
And I'm 50 years old, and I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Nobody should ever see what we saw that day in the basement of the funeral home.
Mariah's family says the image of her body on that funeral home table replays in my head every day. They are fighting to ensure she does not become a cold case. But the gap between what detectives say in private and what the state produces in court is the only distance that matters.
We hope we can find out. We hope there will be answers. We hope there will be an arrest. But at the end of the day, she deserves justice, and her story.
She deserves justice, and her story deserves to be heard and told. And the truth deserves to be known. The McLean County Coroner's report is now public record. Exhibit A in a case with no defendant. Read it for yourself. And ask one question in the comments: if 4 people were in that trailer and one is dead, what specific piece of physical evidence could possibly still be missing?